Do you remember
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
as a musician, what do you think
Cold Sweat, you know, was just, see how I was like, I break out in a cold sweat. That was just so funky. I mean, see James doing them steps and sliding on one leg all the way across the stage. It's like, hey, I mean, nobody could do stuff he was doing. And he influenced so many people, not only with his singing, but his dancing, his everything, his band, musicianship, his showmanship. He was the king.
So that, now I know that y'all performed on the stage Bill was saying that Newport, do you remember that the Newport Jazz
Yeah,
Festival?
yeah.
And I found it interesting that he came up with his own sex machine.
All right. Right.
Do you think there might have been any, influence there?
I think that with the prominence of James Brown, Sly and the Family Stone, Hendrix, Beatles, all those type of groups that were strong in what they did, you couldn't help but influence each other. I'm sure that when you really listen carefully, you hear people taking little bits and pieces from each other. Just to influence. I hear it. Overall. I hear James Brown's music and a lot of other people's music. I hear Sly and the Family Stone stuff, like Hendrix influence. There's that overlapping, and that's what happens when you're that prominent and that strong in what you do. People will imitate and emulate you, even if they're not really consciously trying to do so. Can't help it. You're the influence at that time.
And there were a number of other big bands in this period. We're talking mid-70s. Like Parliament Funkadelic.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of that?
We like the funk. Parliament Funkadelic, we did a show with them in Radio City Music Hall in New York City, Graham Central Station, Parliament Funkadelic, right? And it was funny because George, the way they do the show, he would roll a coffin out on the stage and all the lights would be down and this coffin would open up and then this arm would pop out, and then this leg would pop out, then all of a sudden, whoa, we like the funk, audience would go like nuts, right? But my wife now is watching this whole performance, getting out the coffin and all this, stuff. And after the show, I tell her, hey, baby, I want you to come backstage. I want you to meet somebody. She said, who? I said, I want you to meet George Clinton. She said, I said, well, why? No. I said, come on, baby. I said, look, he's really a nice guy. No. And so finally, I was able to convince her to come backstage and meet George, right? And the whole time she was in the dressing room, she was like standing behind me, like peeking up. She was like scared to death. And George's like, oh, hi, Mrs. Graham, how are you? Pleased to meet you. You're really nice and courteous and stuff. Blew Tina away, right? But she was really scared. And then she calmed down after she met him. He was so nice. Years later, last year when Sly and the Family Stone was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, who does the presentation but George Clinton, right? And so when we are in the back room, a little reception room, and we see George and we're talking, hey, how you doing? Good to see you, so on and so forth. And he tells my wife, he say, by the way, he said, I remember when you were backstage at that concert in New York. He said, I know you were scared of me. And she was like, you really knew? I didn't. She was like all blushing and embarrassed. It was funny. He really knew how scared she was and told her years later. But Parliament Funkadelic, bad dudes. And George is still funking it.
When you talk about bass players, What about Bootsy Collins?
Oh, Bootsy's bad. Yeah, Bootsy got his, I mean, he got his thing where, you know, when he plays, you know it's Bootsy. He has his own bag, you know what I'm saying? You know right away, you know, his sound, his approach, his attack, his attitude, yabba dabba do baby. You know, it's like, I mean, nobody do Bootsy like Bootsy, you know? And, I mean, another bass player that I really love, Stanley Clark. You know, we did a tour together. In fact, wait, Stanley Clark, we were asked to do a gig in Japan, me and Stanley, and so we decided to do it just bass, 2 basses and drums, nothing else, right? So Stanley comes over to my house, and I was living in Hollywood Hills at the time, and he comes over for rehearsal. And we sit down on the couch and we get to talking, and my wife bring out some sake, right? Give him some sake, I take some sake, and we sit there, we talk, and it's like, well, that was rehearsal. We never did pick up our actions at all. We just talked about, you know, we're going to do this and do that. And we went to the gig, and he came out from one side of the stage, boom, and I came from the other side. And we was marching toward each other, and we getting closer and closer and closer. We got to the center of the stage, and then we just started going crazy, and the crowd went, oh. And the whole show must have been about an hour and a half or so. It was just basses, 2 basses and drums. That was it. And it was one of the most incredible shows. I mean, I'm not saying it just because I was one of the ones in it. I mean, I had never done anything like that, right? The people just went off. And after that, we did Brazil for about, it must have been about a month or 2 or something like that. We did Brazil together. And of course, we keep the Berdine White. Earth, Wind, and Fire, this bass right here, this bass, Berdine gave me this. Yeah, I came home, we was living in Marina Del Rey, and came home one day and got to the guard gate, and they said, well, we got a package for you. I said, oh, I'm expecting a little envelope, you know, mail or something. He pulls out this big old box, you know, it's like, well, what's this? Oh, Mr. Berdine White left this for you. I went and opened it up, and here's this beautiful bass that he gave me. And thank you, Berdine. That's my buddy.
Earth, Wind & Fire. What was their impact on the music? I mean, they came out with a whole nother thing.
Yeah, I think the Sly and the Family Stone had a big influence on Earth, Wind & Fire. You can hear that, but then they have their own thing that they do. I think Sly and the Family Stone was just an influence, like it was for many other groups. But Earth, Wind & Fire got into their own zone, and you could hear them doing anything. It could be a commercial on television or radio, and right away, Earth, Wind & Fire. You know, it could be a 15-second spot. So they have a very unique sound. And then, of course, the unmistakable vocals of Mr. Philip Bailey. You know, I mean, who else sounds like that, you know? And, I mean, it's just, they have a uniqueness about them that when they're going to do a show, people go crazy, you know?
What do you think is Parker?
The Ohio Players, when I think of the Ohio Players, I also think of the Isley Brothers. Now, you're probably wondering why. And I won't leave you hanging. They made some of the best sounding records. I mean, these folks went into the studio and they just had it mastered down. They had the technique down of how to make a record just jump off, you know, jump off the radio. I mean, just jump out at you, you know? And I just really just always loved, that's why I just hooked them two together. To me, they had some of the best sounding records. They really know how to work it in the studio. And then, of course, I had the privilege of touring with both bands, Ohio Players and Isley Brothers. We did some extensive touring together, and it was always fun. You know, and I hear they're back out now, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do something again, because, boy, it was fun.
Sugar had a really unique sound.
Yeah, fine, yeah. Say what?
I don't know, but I hear a little in that sound. I see a little of Sly and the Family
Of
Stone.
course you do. Yeah, you hear the Sly influence in Sugar's voice, like you hear the Sly influence in Maurice White's voice. You know, there's a lot of people that Sly influenced just him alone with his voice. If you want me to stay, I'll be around today. I'll be available for you to say. I mean, who else sound like that, you know?